Hello, welcome to the Everything is Black and White podcast. It's time for the view from the opposition, and this week it comes from Dan Rolinson from the Claret and Blue Podcast, my equivalent down in the good old Birmingham office. This season, enjoying Champions League football as I was last season, but unfortunately it has come to an end. We're going to talk about that, and of course how that might impact Newcastle's visit to Villa Park on Saturday. But first things first, Dan, how are you keeping? Are you well?
I'm good, mate. Yeah, I've just about got over Tuesday night. It was a unbelievable evening. Obviously, we won the game on the night, but lost the tie, as you well know. But brilliant atmosphere, real good journey. We recorded an episode just yesterday actually about like the whole campaign. Lots of wins in there throughout the league phase, undefeated at Villa Park throughout the whole of the Champions League as well, and yeah, probably went further than most Villa fans expected, and thoroughly enjoyed it, and absolutely given us the taste to get back into it again next season.
I suppose that's the key question ahead of Saturday is how will Villa react to Tuesday? But it sounds like you guys are buzzing with how you guys performed and winning on the night. And despite the fact you guys have gone out, it's not going to be a case of feeling sorry for yourselves. It's going to be maybe a bit of added motivation to make sure you get back next season.
Yeah, I think it goes two ways, doesn't it? You either mope and feel disappointed if we'd have maybe lost to an opponent that wasn't as good as PSG. I say it was Bruges in the round of 16, and we lost after leading in the first leg. That would feel totally different coming off the back of that. But I think most fans, however ardent they are, would have expected Villa to have lost to PSG, especially after the first leg. It would have required an almighty turnaround, and we came one goal away and we created lots of chances. I don't know whether you watched the whole game, but Villa played really well, particularly in the second half. So it goes two ways of either you're absolutely full of fire, motivated, and you want to go again. From a fan's perspective, there's no sadness or anything. The only thing I'd potentially worry about, and I hope this isn't the case, but after the Lord Mayor show, are the players going to be too tired? Is it fatigue? You hope that we're maybe just running on adrenaline, maybe. We're on a decent run across all competitions, and everybody understands the magnitude of this game. This feels like a huge turning point for the race for the Champions League next year. That I don't know whether I'd say this is a more important game for Villa than it is Newcastle, but obviously you won your game in hand. You're now third. It feels like Villa kind of have to win this game to stand any chance of getting into that top five. So it's absolutely huge. Got the Etihad away on Tuesday as well. So two massive games coming up. That it's PSG, great fun, great, enjoyed the ride in the Champions League, but it's full focus on the Premier League now until we get to Wembley next weekend.
Well, we'll talk about that in a moment. But yeah, if you guys lose to Newcastle, which my heart says you will do, it's 8 points, the gap between you guys and Newcastle. I mean, it's already quite sizable thanks to Newcastle winning that game in hand. Does that put a bit of pressure on Aston Villa? I mean, I'm just thinking in terms as well. Obviously, as you said, you've got the taste and you want to be there again next season for the Champions League. But there's lots of rumours and reports about PSR. And you look at the January transfer window, did like gamble with the money they spent bringing those loan players in. Is that an issue as well? I mean, is the impact of PSR playing a way in the background as well?
Possibly a little bit. I mean, as John Townley says, we live in a world of PSR. We all do, and we all have to kind of abide by the rules, and everyone has to plan in their own way. And I think Villa will have a plan, whether that means the sale of a big player or two. Villa absolutely aren't afraid of that. They understand that it might be a necessity, but it's about how you replace that player. You know, obviously losing Douglas Luiz last summer after you qualify for the top four is balmy. You shouldn't have to do that. But Villa had a plan in signing Yuri Tielemans the summer before on a free, and he looks a better player at the moment, Yuri Tielemans, than Douglas Luiz was for us. So Villa will have a plan and they're confident. I've spoke to John before and he said that Villa aren't reliant on the Champions League income. It's not a disaster if we don't, as in that we're not going to all of a sudden plummet and have to sell 5 first-team players if we don't make the Champions League. But it's undeniable the 100+ million that Villa have made this year. If we were only in the Europa League next year or the Conference League or not Europe at all, it's obvious that the finances are going to drop off, but not to kind of catastrophic levels of, okay, well, we now need to sell Ollie Watkins, Emi Martinez and Ezri Konsa in one summer and decimate the side. That won't happen. But getting into the Champions League would be massive to keep progressing the club further.
Yeah, and we can relate to that. And John, that you referenced there is the kind of the equivalent to Lee Ryder, I guess, for our listeners. He's the sports writer down there covering the club. In terms of that gap that is there now and that would
Yeah.
be there should you lose? I mean, how much pressure does that put on Villa as well?
There is pressure. I feel like we're probably in a fight with Nottingham Forest, to be perfectly honest. My top five is Newcastle and City in third or fourth, depending on how the fixtures go. I think you two are set for a place in the top four, and it's between us and Forest for the fifth spot. I don't really believe Chelsea have got it in them, and they've got some tough fixtures. So if we were to lose to Newcastle, would it be a disaster? I don't think so. I think that would put us out of the race with you. I think I'd be kind of irrelevant what Newcastle do now. You win some games, whatever, you'll finish third. We're not competing with you anymore. But I want as many teams to be in that fight as possible for as long as possible, because teams slip up when there's pressure. So it wouldn't be a disaster. I think it then puts almighty pressure on having to go to the Etihad and get something. I don't think you can lose the two games that Villa have coming up. I actually think two draws wouldn't be the end of the world, because at least there's no ground gained and there's two more games gone. I don't think that's the end of the world, but it does feel like if Villa weren't to get a positive result in the Newcastle game first, you've then got massive pressure on the City game, and it's away from home. So I think if Villa were to win this game, which my heart says we will then go to the Etihad and go, we've just beat PSG on the night, we've just beat a really informed Newcastle. Why can't we go to the Etihad against a Champions League rival and get something there as well? So this next, 5 or 6 days is massive, absolute crucial.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of switched because the period you're talking about coming up for you guys is the kind of the period that we're coming to the end of now for Newcastle United, with 3 games in a week. But also, I wouldn't write off Arsenal, falling away from second.
Possibly.
I think there's a chance that Newcastle could catch them. I mean, this is me being overly optimistic, but they're in such good form and they do look unstoppable, Newcastle, at the moment. Villa is their first real big test in this run-in, and then we do face Arsenal towards the end of the season. But I think Newcastle United are in such a good place. It's really going to take something special to beat them on Saturday. And they have a tremendous record against Villa of late, having won 5 of the last 6. Villa have won only once, and that's as much as Villa had done in their previous 16. So whereas Villa used to be really good against Newcastle, something has changed, and Newcastle on the road are absolutely superb as well. But they do go to Villa Park, which is something of a fortress this season, and you've only lost once in the league, yeah?
Yeah, was that game we beat you, was that the 3-0?
It would have been, yes, most probably. Was that the Grand National weekend a few seasons ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was around that kind of time.
Yeah.
I seem to remember Newcastle being on a similar run that they are now. I think you maybe won 4 or 5 on the spin then, and it was like, this is a real test for Villa to maintain their Champions League or European aspirations. If it was the season before, yeah, it definitely was the season before. Newcastle are kind of the poster boys of what we want to be. They're comfortably in the top 4. They're relentless. They just keep winning, and we can put a stop to that. And we played brilliantly that day. We kind of need that game plan to happen exactly the same again. You're in great form coming into this, and we're in good form as well. But you look kind of the team to beat at the moment. I think again the blueprint for how to navigate this top 4 in the back end of a season and the run in. So if Villa can kind of have a little bit of a shock in the same way they did a couple of years ago, then yeah, obviously that's massively beneficial. If this was at St James's, I'd have already written it off. Our record there was terrible, and I hate coming there. We just never win. It's horrible.
I think the difference this time around, obviously, a couple more players added, but Newcastle United just have seemed to have matured into this proper top side. And that's not to say Villa aren't, because I think the two teams are on a very similar level. But this might come back to bite me in the behind. But you just feel, especially recently, that this is a Newcastle United side that does what you expect of them. So it was, here's a chance to go third if you beat Crystal Palace. Job done. Here's Manchester United. They're awful. You should beat them. Job done. Now, Villa, as I said, the biggest test of the run-in, but Newcastle away from home do very, very well. Great record against Villa. So there will be a lot of people saying, yeah, we should go out and win this. It'll be a lot closer. It's not going to be 6-0. The scorelines are going to keep increasing. It'll be a lot closer, but they should go out and win it, or at the very least get a draw. I'd be surprised if they lost. I'd be disappointed if they lost, because they shouldn't do in this run of form. But we'll keep everything crossed that it's a 3 points for Newcastle at least.
So, mate, it's interesting though that running, because you're right. You kind of flip this 2 ways. I think there is that satisfaction of, well, we're expected to win, and you actually just go out and do it. because it's easy for clubs that aren't used to winning all the time to slip up. We've had it last year, the opportunity to go top of the league at Christmas. We blow it at Sheffield United at home. When you have an opportunity to do something, you can crumble sometimes. So Newcastle on a brilliant run of form, as you said, the incremental goals scoring by each game. If it's 6-0 at Villa Park, then you won't see me on this podcast ever again, because that's not going to happen. Maybe apart from the Carabao Cup, because it's Liverpool and they probably would have been the favourites going into that. I look through the rest of the run that you're on: West Ham away, Brentford at home, Leicester away, Man United at home, and Palace at home. And it's great that you're on this winning run for you, but I expect that there's no game in there that is a shock.
Yeah,
if
but
beat Villa, that'd be like, well, okay, that's a real statement. You've gone to Villa Park and won. Only Arsenal have beaten us at home, and that was back in August. And if not for Ollie Watkins missing his shooting boots, we absolutely deserve to win that game. We've lost one other in the Carabao Cup to Palace when we rotated the whole squad, so kind of forget about that. Those run of fixtures, yes, you still got to go out and do it and get over the line. There's no shocks in there really from a result point of view.
I think the point that I was making, though, from a Newcastle United perspective, having supported the club for as long as I have, you have that fear that they will slip up. You went out and asked people to vote with their heart or their head, and there'd be a lot of people on Wednesday would have said, yeah, we should win here against Crystal Palace. We're at home, the prize on offer, but also we could see us slipping up. And again, look, they were on a great run of form, so it wouldn't have been the biggest shock. But you look at the likes of Manchester United and Leicester, had they lost to Leicester, it would have been a massive shock. But deep down inside of you would have gone, well, this is Newcastle United. I remember
we're the same, I suppose.
We kind of just always expect them to slip up, but what's happening in recent months is that actually it's not happening. They're not slipping up, and they're doing what's expected of them. Of course, for it is a different task, so we'll wait and see what happens there. But you mentioned at the start, Dan, about fatigue and a little bit of a worry about how the players might be feeling in terms of their physical or maybe even mental strength. But I was looking at the bench for the PSG game, and the players you had on the bench, I mean, the depth is just unbelievable. And our listeners and viewers would give the right arm, I think, to have just a little bit of the same when it comes to Newcastle United, because we haven't really got any game changers on the bench. Maybe Anthony Gordon, but we haven't really got anybody else. Whereas you guys have got 4 or 5 players who could probably walk into maybe not the top 4 or 5, but any other team in the Premier League, you might argue.
Yeah, I 100% agree. We had a conversation on our Q&A at the start of the week. Have Villa got the best overall squad in the league? Which is probably a mad shout for a team that is currently, are we 6th or 7th or something? But we've got so many different options to change the game that maybe at this specific point of the season when other clubs have injuries, we're lucky at the moment that we've had maybe 2 or 3 games without any injuries, which is the longest spell we've had all season of a fully fit squad. It doesn't happen very often, but there's players at the moment who aren't even making the bench. Ross Barkley's only just come back into it. He wasn't on the bench before, despite being fit. Leon Bailey's had a bit of a knock. He wasn't on the bench in the last couple of Premier League games either. So we're now at a point where we've got too many options to even fill the bench, which is a vastly different situation we had at the turn of the year when we had, I think, 1 fit centre-back at one stage. So completely flipped now, and it's obviously the perfect time to have those options. I think when I mention fatigue, it is absolutely a mental fatigue. It's, can we get over what we've just gone through at PSG and go again? Because we keep experiencing this thing of every game is the biggest game of the season. We just have to keep going again. PSG was the biggest game of the season up until this one. And City will be the biggest game of the season after this one, and then Palace at Wembley will be the big, you know what I mean? So it's about just that relentless nature of keep going, which is what Newcastle have been good at in this winning run that they've been on. But you're right, you could change Rashford for Watkins, Rodgers for Asensio, Ramsey for Bailey, and all of a sudden you don't think that the team is necessarily weaker. The three changes there, you'd say that are still first team ready players that could compete for a starting position at a top 7, top 8 club 100%. So it's great depth to have, and it allows us and allows Emery to do different things to try and win games. So yeah, fantastic position, but touch wood, because these injuries come back to bite you sometimes. So yeah, I'm enjoying a full squad while it lasts.
Are you expecting many changes for Saturday?
Oh, no, you're going to ask me that. I haven't given it any thought. I don't know whether you experienced this last year with the Champions League, but it's so all-consuming that I've only just really stopped thinking about PSG. I know it's because we've just filmed an episode about it, but I, as a fan, I haven't really turned my attention to Newcastle yet. It's only Thursday as we record this. Game's Saturday night. I think there will be a couple of changes. Anana started up against PSG, and I'm not sure we'll do the same again. We had Anana and Kamara and Tielemans played further forward, whereas for most of the season it's been Kamara and Tielemans as the pivot and Rodgers or Asensio in the 10. I'm not sure we'll see Tielemans at number 10 again. Rashford started up front and Watkins looks frustrated. He wants to be playing games. He's not happy at being on the bench. Scored a fantastic goal away at Southampton, and he's one goal away from matching Gabby Bonlahor's Premier League record of 74 goals, I think it is, in the Premier League. I'm pretty sure Watkins is on 73, so he desperately wants to break that record as well. That is in his mind, that he knows he's kind of running out of games to score the goals required to beat that, and it's kind of hanging over him a little bit. So I wouldn't be surprised. I don't think I've got the brain capacity to give you an actual 11 now, but I wouldn't be surprised to see 2 or 3 changes from that PSG side. Maybe Maatsen for Dean for a bit of energy, bit of pace. Konsa, Mings, Pau Torres, one of those is going to miss out. I wouldn't be surprised to see Mings potentially, but yeah, honestly, mate, I've not given it any thought, which is bad for your podcast, but I'll have given it some thought by Friday night.
I'm sure our listeners can understand that you've been slightly distracted by PSG. Leads us nicely into the next question, though. Perfect segue there. You mentioned FA Cup semi-final at the end of the month, right?
Yeah.
Would you allow for it to be a distraction on Saturday, or is it a must that Villa just focus on beating Newcastle and it's all about the Champions League qualification? You can't allow yourself to be distracted by the thoughts of Wembley.
I think so. I mean, I tweeted after Newcastle went 2 up on Wednesday night. I was watching the game. Obviously, we play both of you soon, and desperately hoping Palace to get something as well. Obviously, as I'm sure Newcastle fans want Villa to slip up, or did want Villa to slip up. That moment of Eze's penalty, which was woeful, and then you going up and scoring at the other end, it could have been 1-1, then it's 2-0, is a massive turning point in the game. And check it at half time. Was it 4 at half time? Was it 5? 4.
It was 4.
So, okay, that's game over. Forget that. But I'm sure Palace will turn into prime Barcelona in a couple of weeks when we play them, because they always seem to have our number, especially at Selhurst Park. So I'm glad it's not there. St James's, Selhurst Park probably had 2 worst performing stadiums across the league, and maybe Molineux as well. Terrible records. I think when we get to Wednesday of next week, we've played you and we've played City, then you can start thinking about Palace. I don't think it's wise to give it any attention at the moment.
But how easy is it, do you think, within the dressing room to stop that? Because a lot of people have said last night, did Palace have one eye on the semi-final?
I think that's probably more likely because I've got nothing else to play for.
Yeah,
I think it's really difficult because as a supporter, I flip and flop between we always get asked all the time. You can only have one: win the FA Cup or qualify for top 5, and it's like, why can you only have one? Why can't you do both? My head says qualify for the Champions League again because I know what it means for the revenue and keeping your players and all that. And I watched you win the Carabao Cup and thought, oh, FA Cup, I want that now. I want to see Claret and Blue ribbons and balloons and parades and whatever else. So it's really difficult. I think as a fan, I want the trophies, but as somebody in the media who's talking about the football all the time and doing the podcast, it's like I understand the other side of it, and getting into the Champions League is massive. So I think if we were 10th now and there was an outside chance of the Conference League, I think, focus on Palace and maybe make some changes for Man City because you want to be strong for Wembley. I hope that despite not having a great record against them, we can still beat Palace, even if we have had to really put it in against Newcastle and Man City over the next few days anyway, because we have the squad to do so. I think if we were getting near the end of the season, it was like it's a must-win game against Spurs, but you've got the FA Cup final in a few days. Maybe that's slightly different. I'm hoping maybe the semi we can just about, with Emery, navigate our way through it and be wise about our squad and making changes. But I think in the here and now, it's all about Newcastle. Like, I'm not even thinking about the Man City game yet. Never mind Palace. It's massively important that we don't lose at the weekend.
So you haven't bought your Wembley 25 shirt for the semi-final yet? Just checking.
Oh, God. Tim Pot that, innit? I really hate stuff like that. If it's the final, a little bit different, I still wouldn't want to buy one. But for a semi-final, come on, Villa. I know what you got to do for PSR, and there will be people that will have bought some. And every little helps, to coin the phrase of a supermarket. But yeah, you won't see me with Wembley 25 on my back. Bloody hell.
I'd love to see the numbers of sales It'll certainly be interesting to see how many people did part with their cash. Talk to us then about how Villa approach Saturday in terms of on the pitch. Are we looking at them having the most of the possession at Villa Park, or are they going to stand off Newcastle? What can we expect?
I think we're getting into a point in the season where playing teams also have something to play for and actually come to play football suits us. We are, I don't want to say we're a counter-attacking team, but we are good on the counter. We're quick. We've got some fast players. We're clinical. You saw the Pau Torres. I mean, he didn't score, but Pau Torres cut through everybody with a pass to put Asensio through against PSG, and he should have scored. Rodgers did similar in the game against Brighton, I think, when Rashford scored. One long ball over the top, pacing behind, goal. And football's a simple game, isn't it? So I think when teams want to come on to us and play, that suits us. If you were coming here to hold on, time waste, be bitty, fouling, really irritating, that doesn't suit Villa to go and break that down. So I think you come in and wanting to play as well suits us. It's on us to take the game to you, though, because we're at home and we have to win. So you're not going to see us kind of hold on for dear life and maybe break on the counter once or twice. We're going to want to create chances and scare you as well, and have players running at your defence and trying to test weaknesses. So you'll definitely see Villa on the front foot, but you're not going to see us go gung-ho from minute one and try and win the game in the first half. You're still going to be clever about it.
What about the high press? Because Newcastle in recent weeks have executed it brilliantly, real intensity, getting in the face of the defence. I mean, how will that impact Villa's approach, do you think?
Again, if we can play out from it, it suits us. We invite the press so often that we're good at trying to navigate around it. I think the word you use there, intensity, is the key for me. The physical battle is what I associate with Newcastle. I think Tonali running it the length of the pitch into the corner against Man United, was it, in the 90-something minute? It's like, is he an alien? How's he doing that? How's he got the energy to do that? It's that kind of physical battle that worries me a little bit, that if you don't match that, it doesn't matter that, I mean, I'm on a Newcastle podcast here, so I'm sure your supporters will think you've got a better 11 than Villa anyway, but argue all you want about who's got the better side, better goalkeeper, better wingers, whatever. If Villa don't match the intensity and be up for that physical battle, they'll lose the game. It is literally as simple as that, because it's so important at this time of the year for who's got the legs, who's willing to fight is going to go far, and Newcastle have that in spades. So I think you'll see the likes of Rodgers starting again for the millionth game because of that physicality. I think that's why you might see Taro Mings, because he's obviously much more physical a defender than Pau Torres is. Matty Cash is very athletic. So yeah, I'm just starting to build a bit of an 11 in my mind, but Villa absolutely have to match that physical, those physical attributes, and try and win that battle as well, because Newcastle aren't going to come here and be soft and be allow Villa to walk all over them. They're going to come and fight, and Villa have to be up for that.
We've seen in recent weeks that's really been the difference. The Manchester United game, the Palace game, because you see
Man United,
Newcastle wanted it more than the opposition, and that does count for a lot. But that midfield battle is going to be key, isn't it? Because I've said on our match preview podcast, I think Newcastle have got the best midfield trio in the Premier League right now in Bruno, Joelinton, and Sandro Tonali. I'm sure you would argue that Villa's midfield is on a level with them as well. But for the neutral, I mean, it's a game that should excite people, but I think that battle of midfield is something to really keep an eye on.
Yeah, I'm not just saying this because I'm on your show now, but I agree. I actually do think your midfield is the best in the league. I'd probably put Villa second, or certainly right up there. A colleague of ours, Dan Bardell, he said that this is the game of the season left, one of the biggest games left, of not just for Villa or for Newcastle, but as a neutral as well, because of what is potentially at stake, and two sides matched up really, really nicely. But yeah, the midfield, it's on Villa to take the game at Villa Park and show that we're not kind of afraid of that fight. Kamara, for me, has been a little bit off it in both PSG games. Not that he was like a liability or anything, but he's, we do a Man of the Match award on our post-match show, and we've joked about renaming it the Kamara Award or the Tielemans Award, because they're in contention for Man of the Match every single game that they play. But he was not up to his usual standards against PSG, I didn't think, and he has to be better and his usual self in this game to give us any chance. Tielemans as well has been ultra consistent all year. 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10 every single game, if not better. Scored a couple of goals as well. So McGinn, man of the match against PSG, in my opinion, from a Villa perspective. In both games, he was great at the Parc des Princes, and he was probably the best player at Villa Park as well, actually. Ousmane Dembele got the official man of the match award, which was ridiculous. John McGinn was electric, kind of carrying Villa forward, proper captain's performance. Obviously got the goal as well to start the comeback that never was in the end. But you need those characters, you need those people to be on the pitch, and you look around and you say, who's going to drag us through this here? And it's the likes of a Tielemans and a McGinn and a Morgan Rogers that are going to help change games. And if they're at their best, I said this to you on a podcast we did for Claret and Blue in the week, if Villa play to their best, they can beat literally anybody. I include Newcastle in that, however good you are and however good form you're on. If we play 10 out of 10s across the pitch, we win the game. And that's Villa's task. Can you play the best game of your career? Can you do that against City and Palace and Spurs? Villa have to be at their best for the rest of the season to finish in the top 5, and fingers crossed they do it, but it's a big ask.
What's the weakness that Newcastle can exploit? What's the one thing that you think they'll be trying to target?
It probably is the physicality. I think if it is Pau Torres, I thought he was good in the second leg against PSG. There was a few people thought he was a little bit ropey. Defensively, he can be caught physically, balls over the top, aerially. It's not his strong point. That's kind of not, it sounds stupid because he's a centre-back, but that's not what he's in the team for. He's there to actually start the attacks and get us going. Everything good, or a lot of good things that came in the second half, came through Pau Torres progressing balls through the lines into midfield and beyond. So if he's playing, he'd definitely be looking to target him from a physical perspective. Both fullbacks are a problem, I think. Luka Dean's been good this season individually as a player. Like, he's probably been one of Villa's better players, but as an area of the pitch, it's a problem. It's a problem that Villa have. A lot of goals that we concede come from wide areas. So when I'm seeing Jacob Murphy whip balls in the first 30 seconds of the game against Palace, I'm thinking, I can see that happening against us because we don't stop the cross, and Newcastle are good at that. So definitely wide areas, I think, is where you'll see some joy, and whether Newcastle win the physical battle. I think they'll be the deciding factors in this game.
See, I was feeling nervous about predicting a win, but after hearing that, I'm all for it. Especially
still going to predict Villa to win.
Jacob Murphy has 11 assists this season. Only Mo Salah has more. He's got 19 goal contributions overall, so he's a man in brilliant form. And it leads us into our penultimate question, Dan, before I do get you to predict the score. Who is the Newcastle United player that you're most fearing?
Oh, that's a good question. Probably. Oh, that is a great question, you know.
It's so nice to ask this question and you don't know the answer to it, because you could literally pick 5, 6 different names to answer that question with.
I would like to think if I asked this the same to you as well, you'd probably feel the same about Villa's squad.
Yeah, look, Villa have got a great squad. I mean, I'm a big fan of Morgan Rogers. I would probably pick him, but Tielemans has surprised me as well. But I mean, it's just nice from a Newcastle point of view to be asking someone and they'll be like, oh, there could be.
It could easily be 5 or 6, yeah. I think, oh God, it's between Tonali and Isak, and I think they're probably the 2 obvious answers. Isak's so deadly, such a good striker. I mean, I remember having debates a little bit last year about Watkins or Isak. By far been Isak this year, easily. Of course, it is a £150 million player. Watkins probably a 50 million, 60 million. Tonali's so good though. I mean, there's just so many good players, and I know football isn't as simplistic as this, but if Villa are focused too hard on stopping Tonali and Isak, well, Murphy will destroy you then, or Joe Linton, or whoever it is. You know, you've got to be on it everywhere. So, it's a really difficult question, that is. But probably Isak just edges it.
That's a perfect answer, to be quite honest with you. How is it going to go then? Give me your score prediction.
4-0 Villa. No, I'm kidding. I've got to say that we're going to win, because that we have to. And it feels a little bit to me like I feel about it the same way I did about the Bruges second leg in the round of 16 and Preston in the FA Cup. 3 vastly different opponents, of course. And I went into those games feeling like we would win. Now, I'm not saying I feel like Villa will win, because it's going to be very difficult. But I saw no other outcome in those fixtures than Villa have to win. We have to get to the quarter-final, and we have to get to the semi-final of the FA Cup. We just have to win. There's no other outcome allowed. And I feel the same way. Villa just have to win the game. At the very least, they can't afford to lose it. Like I said before, I don't think a draw is the end of the world for Villa's top 5 aspirations, but winning it would be such a statement of intent to keep that gap close to Newcastle, just in case we can drag you back into it. Although I do think you'll be fine. But it also sets the tone and the momentum for City midweek, Palace after that. you then got Bournemouth, Fulham, Spurs, and Man United, which I believe are 4 winnable games. So, like I say, it's not the end of the world if you lose here, but it makes the job much harder. 3-2 Villa.
3-2 Villa. Okay, interesting.
We won't keep a clean sheet.
2-1 Newcastle. Head says 1-1 draw, which I think is a decent result for Newcastle.
I won't mind that. I won't mind it.
Well, there we go. We'll wait and see. But thank you, Dan, for sparing the time and popping onto the podcast to provide the insight into Aston Villa. This episode, as always, is sponsored by NordVPN. Do hit the link in the podcast description box to get your discounted plan. Prices start from just £2.30 and can be used across 10 devices. So protect yourself and support the podcast. And for myself, I will see you guys very soon.